Hello there and welcome to Level Update. Today we're diving deep into one of the most surprising developments across the American Southwest, the continuous rise of Lake Powell. After years of sharp decline and public concern, the reservoir is once again showing steady signs of recovery. The latest readings from mid-October 2025 reveal something worth celebrating. Lake Powell's elevation has climbed to 3,545.10 feet, up more than a full foot from its recent low, and it continues trending upward thanks to strong inflows from the Colorado River and unexpected flooding across the basin. Let's begin by putting this number into context. At the Glen Canyon Dam, the lake currently sits 413 feet deep. That may sound modest compared to its full pool elevation of 3,700 feet, but it marks a significant milestone. Only a few months ago, water levels were hovering closer to 3,543 feet, a narrow margin that hinted at further decline. Instead, the opposite happened. Inflows surged, storage increased, and the lake began to rise. According to the Bureau of Reclamation's latest data, Powell is now holding more than 2.2 trillion gallons of water. By content, that's roughly 27.86% of full capacity. Still low, but undeniably higher than what many expected this time of year. The driver behind this increase can be traced upstream to the Colorado River Basin and its tributaries. Throughout late September and early October, widespread flooding hit parts of Colorado and southern Utah. Those floodwaters poured downstream, feeding the reservoirs above Powell and ultimately flowing into the lake itself. The 34 tracked reservoirs across the Upper Basin are currently at over 69% capacity, and rivers feeding Lake Powell are running at nearly 160% of their typical mid-October flow. That's an extraordinary boost. In water management terms, inflows for this new water year, just 15 days old, are already 168% of last year's performance. Such a surge is rare for autumn, a period that usually marks decline. When we examine Powell's inflow data, we see a total of 272,830 acre-feet so far this water year. To give that meaning, 1 acre-foot equals roughly 326,000 gallons, enough to supply a household for a year. In just a couple of weeks, nearly 90 billion gallons have entered the reservoir system. Meanwhile, the dam's total releases are far below average, only 234,919 acre-feet, which is about 3% of the annual minimum requirement. In short, more water is coming in than flowing out, and that's the recipe for the rising levels we're witnessing right now. The graphs tell the story clearly. Between early October and the 15th, the waterline reversed its downward trend and began climbing. On October 9th, the elevation reached a low point around 3,544 feet. Since then, every day has brought incremental gain. It may not seem dramatic, but those daily increases represent tens of billions of gallons retained behind the dam. For hydrologists, the key takeaway is not just the current number, but the rate of change. Lake Powell's water storage has risen by 26,600 acre-feet in just 2 weeks, a tangible sign of recovery that hasn't been seen in months. Looking back over the past year, the long-term chart reveals a steep drop from the highs of 2024. The lake is still 31.98 feet lower than this time last October, which underscores how far it had fallen. But the current uptick marks the first sustained autumn rise in several years. Normally, inflows taper off as temperatures cool and upstream snowpack begins to form. Instead, heavy rains across Colorado and the Four Corners region delivered a powerful late-season pulse. Those floodwaters carried sediment, nutrients, and most importantly, volume, the life source of Powell's slow comeback. It's important to remember what that means for the surrounding infrastructure. Lake Powell isn't just a reservoir, it's a cornerstone of the Southwest's entire water system. It powers the Glen Canyon Dam, provides hydroelectric energy to millions, and serves as a buffer for downstream releases to Lake Mead. When Powell rises, it eases pressure across the basin. More stored water means more flexibility in management, more time for recovery, and less urgency for emergency measures. In that sense, every inch of elevation gain represents far more than a number. It's stability returning to a vital network. The good news extends beyond just storage. The inflow to outflow ratio is now favorable for the first time in months. Total inflows have exceeded total releases by nearly 38,000 acre-feet. That surplus directly translates into a measurable rise in elevation. Experts monitoring the basin report that if the current balance continues, Powell could gain several more feet before winter inflows slow down. Even small increases make a large difference when multiplied across hundreds of square miles of surface area. Observers at Glen Canyon Dam have also noted visible changes. Shorelines once exposed to sun and dust are beginning to submerge again. Marinas are adjusting dock levels upward instead of downward, and some boat ramps that had gone out of service are now being reevaluated for reopening. It's a subtle but symbolic sign that water is returning, not in a flash, but steadily and consistently. Upstream, the Colorado's flood behavior has been both a challenge and a blessing. Rapid rainfall events in late September created localized flooding, especially in western Colorado's high country. Those surges were captured efficiently by the upper reservoirs, which released water gradually downstream. Instead of being lost to evaporation or runoff, that water entered the main river channels, feeding into Powell over the course of several weeks. It's the kind of natural redistribution that can reverse declines even without snowmelt support. Now, as we move deeper into October, the focus shifts toward sustainability. Can Powell maintain this upward momentum? Based on current data, the odds look good. The rivers feeding the reservoir remain above 150% of their historical October flows. Precipitation across the Upper Basin is well above average, recorded at 240% of normal for this date. Snowpack is still forming, currently at 65% of average, but if early storms persist, winter accumulation could build a strong foundation for spring inflows. For now, though, it's the autumn rain and floodwaters doing the heavy lifting. What's especially striking is the reversal of narrative. Not long ago, Lake Powell's declining levels dominated headlines, sparking fears about power generation limits and potential dead pool thresholds. Yet here we are, mid-October 2025, talking about measurable growth and positive inflow balance. While the lake remains far from full, the fact that it's holding steady and even rising is newsworthy on its own. Recovery, in hydrological terms, doesn't happen overnight. It happens 1 foot, 1 month, 1 storm at a time. The story also highlights how interconnected the basin truly is. Flooding in Colorado or Utah doesn't stay local. It cascades through tributaries like the San Juan, the Green, and the Colorado itself, each contributing to Powell's inflows. What happens upstream defines the fate of this massive reservoir hundreds of miles away. The October floods illustrate that perfectly, a reminder that Lake Powell's recovery depends as much on natural rhythms as on management strategy. From a water year perspective, this upward trend couldn't have come at a better time. The 2026 water year began on October 1st, and in just 2 weeks, inflows are already setting a strong baseline. Storage rise of 26,600 acre-feet means the reservoir enters the new cycle with positive momentum, a rare advantage after several consecutive deficit years. That's encouraging news for dam operators, water managers, and communities downstream who depend on regulated releases for agriculture and energy. But beyond numbers and charts, there's something emotionally reassuring about seeing Lake Powell rebound. For those who live near Page, Arizona, or who have boated across its canyon arms, the lake's appearance tells its own story. The color of the water is deeper, the contrast against sandstone brighter. Locals describe the recent weeks as the first time in years they've seen the lake actually rising daily. It's a visual reminder that even reservoirs under stress can recover when nature provides the right sequence of events. In summary, the October 2025 data gives us clear positive signs. Lake Powell is currently 413 feet deep at the dam, 1.07 feet higher than its seasonal low, and holding strong. Total inflows continue to outpace releases. Upstream reservoirs are robust, and flood-driven surges from Colorado have provided an unexpected but welcome boost. While it's far too soon to declare full recovery, the direction of change is unmistakably upward. So as we close today's deep dive, let's take a moment to appreciate what's happening. After years of worry, the conversation about Lake Powell is shifting, from decline to resilience, from loss to gain, from drought to replenishment. Nature has reminded us that it still has the power to surprise.